Hello, everyone. This is Pınar Uçar from United Nations Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific. Welcome to our third day, the webinar series in selected topics in System of National Accounts. On the first day and second day, we talk about the main concepts and definitions in System of National Accounts, and then we cover the sequence of accounts, particularly current accounts, financial accounts, and then capital accounts. Today, we will continue with the updates of 2008 SNA. In the first section, I will give an overview. And then in our meeting, we have today Alik Niyasalu from ESCAP Statistic Division. Alik, I appreciate if you turn on your camera. Yes, hello, Alik. Hello, good day. And then Alik Niyasalu from ESCAP Statistics Division. He will, in the first part of his presentation, he will talk about the task team and guidance notes related to 2008 SNA update. And then second part, he will talk about the assessments and experimental estimates. Okay, then we can start. Let me share my presentation. How is everyone, by the way? How is everyone? I hope you are enjoying the webinar series.
Yeah, I thought they would also put just a camera. I can see the faces as well.
So I see 34 participants here. Some of them are from ESCAP, and then some of them are participants in the course. How is everyone? No response.
Very fine, thank you. And you?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Seda. I'm fine.
Здравствуйте. Всем приветствуем. Спасибо, все хорошо.
Good day. We welcome you, and we are good, and hope you are too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Здравствуйте.
Приветствую Таджикистан. Tajikistan is welcoming us. They're saying thank you.
Thank you. Please let me share my screen. So I hope you can see the presentation. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Да. Yes.
I could manage to share my presentation today. I feel very proud. Okay, let's start. Okay. Yes, I will start with a brief history of SNA background. The first comprehensive set of international standards for national accounts was released in 1953. And then major updates were released in 1968, 1993, and 2008. The work of preparing the most recent updates took place from 2003 to 2008 in a process that was notable for its transparency and the wide involvement of the international statistical community. In February 2008, the United Nations Statistical Commission approved the first 17 chapters, and then it referred to as Volume 1 of System of National Accounts 2008. In August 2008, following a global review, the volume was formally adopted by the Bureau of United Nations Statistical Commission, and February 2009, United Nations Statistical Commission adopted the remaining 12 chapters and 4 annexes and recommended that the entire 2008 SNA be published as one document. The English printed version was released in December 2009. The 2008, I would like to show you here the SNA manual, this one. Yes, it has 29 chapters and 4 annexes, and Annex 4 is about the research agenda. The 2008 SNA noted that the new developments in national accounting emerged through a combination of the evaluation of the economic environments and institutions, combined with the advances in statistical estimation, measurement techniques, and data collection, like big data, using big data for official statistics. It is noted that some issues that were considered during the SNA update process were continuous, but that decisions were reached based on the test information and techniques available at the time. In some cases, research was still underway when the SNA update had to be concluded. So the research team identified a research agenda which was specified in the Annex 4 for the 2008 SNA. At its 51st session, United Nations Statistical Commission requested the Intersecretariat Working Group on National Accounts to develop a roadmap for the revision of the 2008 SNA for adoption by the Commission in 2025. So the target date is 2025. I would like to highlight again, and then I would like to also mention again, the SNA represents a stage in the evaluation in national accounting. To continue that evaluation and to ensure the continuing relevance of the SNA for the purposes of economic analysis and policymaking, further and constant research need to be carried out. Periodic updates are necessary to reflect the real changes taking place within economies, the evolution of the financial and fiscal instruments, and the improvements of accounting methodologies. Sorry, please give me a few seconds. I cannot see the screen, sorry. Can you see the screen? Ali, can you see my slides?
Да, видно.
Okay.
At the third line.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much for the confirmation. So, macroeconomic statistics, macroeconomic accounting standards are regularly updated to reflect changes in the economy, as I mentioned. And when we make the changes on system of national accounts, we need to make the reflect all the changes in other macroeconomic accounting standards like balance of payments, government finance statistics manual, monetary financial statistics manual, and compilation guides, and even SEA system of environmental economic analysis. It comes as a package. So when you make the changes, you need to reflect all the changes, and you need to publish a new version of these manuals, which will reflect all the changes. So new updates will cover, can be categorized into three main groups. One on conceptual updates. For example, change in what is measured, conceptual updates. Change in what is measured. For example, how to measure the productional data and the capitalization of data in national accounts. The second one, methodological updates, change in how activities are measured. For example, the way we calculate the FISM. And the third one, the presentational updates, change in how the statistics are presented. There's a communication group under the secretariat and working on this issue particularly. So how change in how the statistics are presented. Yes, SNA update process as approved by the 2020 United Nations Secretariat Commission. Ali, can you hear me now?
Yes, but your connection is bad.
So incremental research work, we start with the principle. First of all, identification of conceptual solution subject to practical testing, and iterative improvement of guidance notes. Guidance notes will cover the issues. We'll work on the issues to be covered, issue 1, 2, and the coordination between national accounts and other domains, like balance of payments, and then government finance statistics. And then research group also taking into consideration all the inputs from the international statistical organizations. And then SNA extension on supplementary tables and satellite accounts. So when they decide on the issues, it will come with the consultation and testing. And after the critical mass, the measure updates. And after the review of the necessary elements, it will come with the editing system, reinforced communication. It requires a dedicated website. It requires a branding, SNA branding, and then digitize the SNA, not only SNA, the other macroeconomic accounts like balance of payments, government finance statistics, and the SAEA. And then United Nations will support the developing countries to implement the new version of SNA, and then will provide the human and financial resources. So issues to be addressed for the users. So what is the value of data? Investment in data, databases, and data science with the digitalization and then and the other changes. The investment in data, databases, and data science are changing, evolving, and then the new estimates are required, and then the clear explanation on these issues are required. So this will be one of the issues to be addressed. And then moving from averages to distributions. This is also important, the share of personal income, for example. How do we present the data, and then how do we measure it? And then other issue, should we value free digital services? And the time and then money spent on this digital services has evolved since 2008, 2009 revision. So this should be addressed. It should be explained in a clear way, and the methodology also should be added to the new update. Should we include human capital in the assets boundary? And the current, although there is a guide on measuring human capital, this should be explained in a more expanded way in the new version. Covering on the compensation of the employees is not enough, so human capital in the assets boundary is important. And how can we better reflect the interaction between economy and the environments, like degradation, biodiversity, and sustainability? And what are the cryptocurrencies? There are some research papers published by IMF, but it requires more clarification from the Secretariat group. So this will be one of the other issues to be discussed, and then it requires input from the international statistical organizations, and then there will be a new section, new chapter on the what are the cryptocurrencies, and then how it could be measured. And what is the size of the informal economy? Also, the official estimates. You can see the official estimates of the informal economy for selected countries in this table. So it should be added to the new version. And the difference between the property income and then rental income. And this is the way, the cycle. So task team are working on it. They are preparing guidance notes. And then guidance notes covers recommendation and then clearance, global consultation, feedback, and then testing, experimental estimates with all the final review and the feedback, and then final version of the guidance notes will be the output here. You can see the life cycle here in detail. Guidance notes drafted by task team, public global consultation, including experimentation and testing, draft guidance notes reviewed by the committees, second round of review, and then task team sends guidance notes to committees. And then you see the dispute resolution, joint endorsement, and then decision by the Balance of Payment Committee for BPM 6 update, and then United Nations Statistical Commission for the 2008 SNA update. These are the task teams: globalization, digitalization, well-being and sustainability. As you know, well-being and sustainability is an important part of sustainable development goals, and then should be included in the national accounts. And then cross-cutting issues, other issues, communications, and then financial issues. These are the research topics. These are the research topics. Starts from globalization and then ends with financial issues. And the task teams are globalization, digitalization, well-being and sustainability, Islamic finance, communications, communication, financial issues, informal economy, and then balance of payments. You can see here in this slide the task team secretariats. For example, well-being and sustainability task team group are led by OECD. This Islamic finance led by UNSCAP and ESCAP, and balance of payment task team led by IMF. And then these are the guidance notes. It will start with the assessment and experimental estimates components. It will start with the baseline assessment, experimental estimates, and the reporting, gathering results, implementation feasibility of the recommendations, impact assessment of the recommendations, and feedback information sharing. And then there are some questions for consideration here. What will be the main priority or most relevant issues for your country? The plan to participate in the global consultation. Is there anything can help you to participate? I'm asking this question on behalf of ESCAP Secretariat Group. And one of the participants raised the issue in their country about informal economy, and then including how to capture the remittances. And I gave some advice on the chapters on the accounts included in the balance of payments manual. What would be the main priority or most relevant issues for your country? I would like to ask you this question, and then we will continue with the next presentation on task team and guidance notes in detail. Yes. Please, if you would like to take the floor, please turn on your camera and then unmute yourself. What would be the main priority or most relevant issues for your country? I will stop sharing here. Who would like to take the floor? I will start. If this is a difficult question, I will ask another question. Who would like to take the floor? Vitaly? Who would like to take the floor? From Uzbekistan. Yes, hello.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги.
Dear colleagues,
Yes, yes.
I think the echo is too strong. It's Вы меня слышите? Эхо идет. The echo is very strong.
I'm sorry. Have you heard about this 2008 SNA update? And did you participate in any seminar or other webinar on this?
Как вы уже упомянули,
Other participants, please mute yourself. Yes, please unmute yourself. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We will come back to you later on then. Is there any other participant? We have just a few minutes. I would like to know if you have heard about the SNA 2008 update before. Do you have any conversation within your organization or in your department? Have you heard about this?
Здравствуйте, госпожа Пинар. Я из Узбекистана.
Good afternoon. I'm Rahmoudi Yusuf from Uzbekistan. Yesterday, we weren't able to have a conversation. I apologize for the technical glitch. We have heard about the review of the 2008 SNA, and mostly we heard about the issues pertaining to research and development, how to take that into consideration. The external sector, how to include data on import and export, and we've heard about other changes as well, including the USPIC. Let me tell you about what we do in Uzbekistan. According to the 2008 standard, we perform final and GDP based on revenues and the production method. And final use, we use it both annually and quarterly. And for revenue only on an annual basis. We currently studying use of USPIC based on 2008. And we will try to separate end use from intermediary consumption within households in various sectors in the economy. So now we're preparing to introduce that. But mostly everything we do is in line with the 2008 standard. And in terms of research, we've started doing it, but we currently run into some issues with taking into account information about different facilities because it's considered confidential. But in terms of gross primary capital, all of that we do in line with the 2008 standard for the system of national accounts. And based on the presentation of what's been done to prepare for 2025, I have to say this is really interesting. Currently, the informal part of the economy is something that is of great importance for us. We have a pilot survey. Perhaps my colleague would be able to tell you more about that. Another question that is of great importance to us is Islamic finance. That's true for us and for the Islamic countries as well. And finally, cryptocurrencies. That is another area that is of great interest to us because it's becoming more widely used. And so this is something we would like to perhaps look into more in detail. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to provide additional information if there are any other questions.
Thank you.
Спасибо, thank you.
Yes, now and there is another comment on the chat on informal economy. Sample surveys carried out in the 2 regions of the Republic to study the activities of individuals and legal entities. Special questionnaires were drawn up for each sector of the economy. Advice on the non-observable economy would be useful to us. Okay, thank you very much for this comment. I think there is a problem with from my side. I apologize for that, and I would like to give the floor to Alik for the second presentation. Alik, floor is yours.
He's having a problem with the connection.
I apologize for that. Alik can take the floor.
Alik is having a problem with his connection.
How? Okay. So while we are waiting, is there anybody else? I would appreciate if you share your comments from your side regarding the 2025 updates and the research agenda, which are globalization, digitalization, well-being and sustainability, cross-cutting issues, other issues, communications, and financial issues.
Можно моя коллега
My colleague is going to take the floor and provide some comments. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm not an official participant, but allow me to comment and say a few words about the use of the 2008 SNA methodology. It was done in our country in 2015. I'm not going to go over it again, just to mention that the main difference was capitalization of research and development and arms. And we also introduced the new calculation methodologies, and that were then approved by the experts from the IMF. Also in 2015, we reviewed data for the period starting in 2012. So as of now, we have time series on GDP and SNA compiled based on the 2008 methodology starting from 2012. In terms of the informal economy, or the invisible part of the economy, we've been monitoring it or accounting for it ever since we introduced the system of national accounts, and at different points of time, different approaches have been used. Mostly, our estimates are based on employment. We receive data from the labor force surveys. We use data on the number of individuals employed in different sectors and looked at the number of hours worked per individual. In 2007 or 2008, we had a project with the Asian Development Bank. We then conducted a survey on informal economy. At the time, we looked at agriculture and non-agriculture informal parts of the economy. We've had other surveys conducted on statistics and sociology, and we've used different kinds of approaches. But mostly we rely on labor force surveys. But this is the recommendation that we received. That was another project in collaboration with the Danish Statistical Agency. And they've advised us to have the tabular method to estimate tabular approach, I believe it is called, the tabular approach to informal economy. According to this approach, according to this methodology, there are 7 subunits in the informal economy. And since then, we've begun to conduct the surveys that have to do with both illicit activity and informal activity, etc. And this is how we try to evaluate the informal part of the economy. I know that this is a really large topic, a very broad topic, but at least this is what we are doing in our country, in Armenia, in that regard. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your sharing your experience, and then I'm happy to hear that you're collaborating with the other organizations like Asian Bank and then Danish Statistics Office. Yes, congratulations, and then good luck with the new updates. The target date is 2025, of course, and then thank you very much. Yes, Alik, you are back.
Yes, I had connection issues, so I seem to have sorted them out. Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy you are back, so we can continue with the with your presentation.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, floor is yours.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, dear colleagues, and I know you've had a serious dose of nationals in the last 2 days. I will talk about the SNA update process. So it's not very technical presentation, but the idea is to make this process as consultative as much as I can and draw your attention to really participate and contribute to the update process. So as you recall, the SNA has been updated a number of times, but this is the first time that actually the process has been more inclusive to ensure that different countries are actually involved at different levels of development. So I'll talk about the guidance, the task teams and the guidance notes. So let us start by looking at the overall framework of how we've actually done this process, or how this process is being conducted. So there is a technical research team which has some very specific task teams, and they have a very specific timeline and with very specific outputs. And the key outputs are developing guidance notes in line with the critical topics that are, I think Pina already put up a slide showing the different task force teams. And these will be tested through countries are undertaking different experiments and testing these new guidance notes on very specific topics. And then there is also a consultation going on that will just involve a broader network of different users involving policymakers, academia, and the private sector, and so forth. And there will be global conferences just to make sure people are consulted. And the overall idea is to make sure that there is also a need for collaboration with experts in other statistical areas like the balance of payments, the government financial statistics, the monetary financial statistics manual, the SIA, labor practice, and so forth. So just to make sure that there is some sort of that kind of consistency. So this is what it is all about, the task teams, very specific timeline and outputs. And as now we are looking at the first week of January for all the task teams to finalize their guidance notes. So let us look at the actual life cycle of a guidance note. So a task team, for example, one that was highlighted there was the one on Islamic finance. So you have a task team on Islamic finance that will draft a guidance note. And the guidance note is usually reviewed by the advisory expert group meeting for clearance. And we had this meeting last week, and I'm happy to say that we cleared the guidance note for the Islamic finance guidance note. And then from that, we go to a process of public or global consultation, including experimenting and testing. And then, if necessary, there might be a need for a further review. And then, when the experimentation and the testing is actually done, the task force team would normally send the guidance note to the advisory expert group and the intersected working group on national accounts and the balance of payments committee. And then for further, and then if there's some issues, there might be some issues to be resolved, but we expect to have a joint endorsement of the guidance note. And then a decision will be made by the United Nations Statistical Commission to endorse that change. And that way is how we're going to do this process. So just to make sure that this is it's a global effort, we have contributions from over 20 countries, and different international agencies are providing secretariat, including Eurostat, OECD, and the IMF. And then we have experts from 6 statistical domains. And so when we're looking at the research agenda, the issues that are very important is the first part is to do with the key priority areas of the advisory group on economic statistics, and the topics that have been highlighted or are being given priority include globalization, digitalization, well-being and sustainability, cross-cutting issues, and completion issues. So the agency to address these issues have actually been the drive behind the different guidance notes as tasked by the very specific task force teams. And then the second part is mainly to deal with the long-term SNA research agenda. And here we're looking at broader things in which we are going to, for example, we've been having what we call the sprint meetings to create a network of economic statisticians globally to get greater involved in different types of research on issues that are emerging. So these task teams were launched to resolve issues relating to the priority areas. And these are the priority areas that you see on my screen. And each task force team is organized in a way that it is overseen by a steering committee and read by country members of the advisory expert group. Advisory expert group. So, for example, you have the informal sector. You have, I think, Uganda and IMF, and then you have Wellbeing and Sustainability led by Jamaica and so forth. So the intersected agency would just provide the secretariat that is basically UNSD secretariat. And so the guidance are being developed for each of the priority areas, and most of the guidance are almost coming to a conclusion at this stage. So when you look at the priority areas, we can briefly break them into 3 broad categories. So you have the SNA priority areas that you see on the left of my screen, that is digitalization and well-being and sustainability. And then for the balance of payments, that is the research involving the balance of payments manual. You have the BOP itself, and then the current account, and the direct investment. And in the middle, we have issues that have a bearing on both the SNA as well as the balance of payments. So matters relating to globalization, Islamic finance, informal economy, international investment position, classification statistical units, and so forth. So this is how the research is actually being broken down. But you can see that you can't divorce the SNA from the BPM. We really want to make sure that there is a lot of, not a lot, but there is convergence in terms of concepts, and that the issues that are happening now need to be properly synchronized by these two different broad categories of economic statistics. So the slide there just gives you an idea of who is doing what, and so different countries are actually involved, and different I already talked about wellbeing and sustainability, digitalization. The US and Indonesia are reading that, and then you have ROSSTAT and so forth. So different types of agencies that are actually looking at. Okay, so how are we looking at this membership? So we have over 300 experts working on this topic, on these topics across 10 task force teams. And this is just to ensure that there is a lot of cooperation and consistency in terms of the concepts and the issues that are coming in, and to make sure that the concerns of each and every country are actually brought, taken care of. So that's the list of the broad collaboration in terms of the task team membership. So well-being, intellectual property rights, informal economy, globalization, financial and payment systems, direct investment, digitalization. So basically, this is just the slide before me. It's the preceding slide, but maybe put up in terms of in a different setup. So the 11 SNA issues and 47 BPM issues, and 31 joint issues for both the SNA as well as the balance of payments. So currently over 8 issues are actually being addressed here. So what do these guidance notes actually do? So they identify issues that affect the central frameworks compared with those that can be addressed by, supplementary tables, for example, or those that we can actually present in satellites. And then not only do they look at the conceptual implications, but also explore the feasibility of implementing some of the proposed conceptual solutions. And then they also give some practical guidance on how it actually look when you actually experiment and try to test when the actual compilation takes place. So here we're looking at maybe countries coming forward and trying to, adopt some of the recommendations from the guidance notes and see what are those implications are for compilation purposes, and whether there is any big change from the concept. So, for example, the guidance notes on digitalization, it's some of the issues that are being addressed is to do with digital supply and use tables. So I think we've come to acknowledge that digitalization has become a very important issue, and if at all there is a possibility that maybe it could have a lot of visibility in our national accounts. And because a lot of digital goods and services are being measured and affected by digitalization, and then there is the issue of price and volume measures for those goods. And this calls for a further reflection on how traditional data sources can be updated more frequently to capture changes that digitalization poses or implicates for national accounting purposes. Similarly, how would this data be recorded in national accounts, and how can we actually undertake valuation of such kind of free assets and free services? And then, as we all are aware, we are also having the so-called crypto assets, and I think we've all heard about crypto assets. So a lot of terminologies or classifications are being put in place, and maybe new crypto assets might actually emerge. So cryptocurrencies, they're becoming a common thing, and we're really trying to be at the top of our game. And so this is what the guidance notes for digitalization are trying to address. So there are also issues of artificial intelligence, and there is no common definition, but there's some guidance that the US Bureau has actually tried to give based on some of the definitions used by Amazon. And then, for example, we are also looking at cloud computing. Days are fast going when you could actually have a physical server in every office, and we are all opting for having or sourcing cloud computing, whereby we can just rent a server online and keep our data there, and we can just pay for that service. So the question that has for national accounting is, for example, how should we classify these kind of activities or services, whether this is expenditure on a capital asset, or whether it's intermediate consumption. So these are some of the issues that are actually being addressed in the guidance notes on digitalization. And then with respect to well-being and sustainability, a lot of things that are actually being considered here. That is to look at how households are actually appear, they're becoming more granular in the central framework, and maybe there might be a need to adopt new concepts to see how they can actually fit in today's world. And then further activities relating to households and paid service work. This is to make sure that maybe we can do something to complement traditional measures. And then also health and social conditions, the increase in the healthcare sector, maybe there might be some need for further adjustments. And then there's also a need to consider alternative human capital assets, and probably in the context of new labor counts in physical units or new details on education and training. So these are the issues that this task force team is actually working on. So ownership and depletion of natural resources for the purposes of environmental accounting. And I think this is increased emphasis on the new depletion adjusted net measures. in line with our SNA economic ownership principles. And then biological resources to think about the SNA production and asset concepts, for example, for connected assets to better align with the SIA. For example, you notice that resources that exist within maybe international waters or resources that maybe are being cultivated, maybe not being used, but the SIA does account for everything irrespective of the ownership. So these are some of the issues that are actually being considered. The same for emissions permits. So globalization, there is a guidance note on globalization. A lot of issues here are not go into all detail, but some of the issues to do here is if we could maybe do further adjustments in terms of how we do the CIF, that's cost insurance, and FOB, free on board adjustment. So maybe adopting the invoice value for the valuation of imports and exports. And then the treatment of multinational enterprises and the intra-flows are between or amongst them, and to recommend issues of ownership broken down in foreign controlled corporations or national private public corporations, which are part of domestic M&As. And then also the issue of special purpose entities and the residency. So this is to make sure that there is sort of consistency between these institutions, between national accounts as well as the external sector. For example, distinguishing which is foreign controlled or which is domestically controlled. Yeah. And then merchanting and factorized goods and how their transactions can actually be produced. So you got goods that are maybe assembled in one country, but the production chain is, across different countries, and you've got maybe outsourcing of manufacturing. And then there is also a guidance note on the informal economy, and some of the issues that are coming out clearly are in this regard involve the statistical framework and classification of the informal economy and measuring of the informal cross-border transactions. Digitalization and the informal economy. You notice that as we digitalize, there will also be an element of informality that will come as the informal sector itself actually evolves. Similarly, how best can we present the informal economy and the system of national accounts? Before I proceed, can I take any questions or any comments at this stage? Any comments? Okay. Pina, can you hear me?
Здравствуйте, господин Алик. Было очень приятно.
Good day, Mr. Alec. It was very useful. Your presentation was useful. I would like to ask, you mentioned there are more than 20 countries, including 300 experts who are taking part in this work. And what about developing countries, especially the CIS countries? Do you have any information if any of these countries are involved? Because, as you know, developing countries have their own specifics. And will we see that these developed countries, the World Bank and others who are involved in this work? But I would like to know if there are any experts from developing countries and experts. And another question, you mentioned about non-paid work on the households. Yes, we have the housewives who are who work at home, cooking dinner for the family, and they provide some services for their family. So I would like to ask, should we capture these services? And are they in any way captured in the SNA 2008? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is it Yakuba and Yusuf? The questions are very good. First of all, let me state that unfortunately, we do not have any of the CIS countries in the expert group, but the clause that we have is ROSSTAT, or the Russian Federation Cisco Service, which has a very close connection to the CIS countries. But having said this, there is an opportunity, I will talk about it in the next presentation, that there'll be a chance for countries to volunteer to undertake experimentation and testing of the guidance notes, and countries can volunteer to be part of this, and this would be the best way to show the world or influence the changes in the new SNA update. And there'll be resources available to countries with external experts to work with those countries. So the onus will be very much on your part to come forward and convince your management to say, can we participate to this? And then UNSD will come forward and will provide experts to work with you. And coming to the question of unpaid housework, of course, it is not included, but in the SNA per se, the best one can do, I think currently conceptually, is maybe time use surveys and try to value those things. But for purposes of the SNA update, that area is being explored and will also be available for experimenting. So it's an experiment we are running here. Thank you.
Yes, I would like. Sorry, yes, I would like to add something here. It will be, as Alex said, it will be under 2025 SNA, and it will be under Wellbeing and Sustainability Task Team. There are 6 area groups under Wellbeing and Sustainability Task Team. Is one of them is a broader SNA 6 area groups, a broader SNA framework for the well-being and sustainability. And then the other one, distributions of household income, consumption, saving and wealth. And the third one, unpaid household service work. And it is, the leader is Chris Payne from UK Office for National Statistics. And the other ones will be labor, education, human capital, health, social conditions, and environmental economic accounting. So yes, it is a task team, it is a topic under discussion, and then it will be under well-being and sustainability task team.
Thank you, Pina. And I think to the colleague putting up the question from Uzbekistan, I think what we need to be very clear here is that this is an ongoing process, and we are trying to engage countries. And countries, even though you may not have an expert represented in the expert group, you have a chance to influence the changes in the SNA update by making yourself available to test some of these guidance notes. There'll be support financial as well as human resources outside from UNST. It's a project, so please make yourself available for experimenting and try some of these things, and then you can actually influence the outcome. Okay, thanks for the question. Let me proceed to the next. So the other guidance. Come again? Was there any other question?
Не, спасибо. Я хотела поблагодарить вас.
No, everything is clear. I would just like to thank you.
Okay, thank you. Спасибо. That's how far my Russian can go. I wish I could do better. Okay, thanks, colleagues, and thanks for the questions from Uzbekistan. So the other guidance note is on Islamic finance, and I'm not sure whether CIS countries have this in place, but it is of interest to some of the countries in Southeast Asia. So the main issues is that you know, the way we calculate FISM is very complex for Islamic finance in the sense that Islamic finance does not charge what is known as riba or interest. So we are actually looking for having a terminology where you could have a clear guidance in terms of the income that accrues from Islamic loans or deposits or debt securities. So this guidance note is actually ready, and we had a very good discussion on this. It's been done, and the guidance note is ready. So there are different types of also Islamic products and different Islamic windows. So the issue is whether some of them are really doing financial intermediations, or they're doing certain things that are very different, and how can we classify some of these activities. And then there's also the issue of economic ownership of national assets and financial assets. So the whole idea is to give clear guidance on ownership and change of ownership of many financial assets that are legally owned by corporations. And then communications. This one is mainly to do with macroeconomic accounting terminology and branding, so that our users are able to understand. So, for example, I can challenge you that if you went out for a meal with a friend and you taught them something about primary income, or they'll talk about secondary distribution of income account, possibly they have no idea what this is all about. But maybe when you talk about primary income account balance, they will probably understand when you say it's GNI. And when you say the second distribution of income account balancing item is actually GNDI, gross national disposable income. So it is a question of terminology to make sure that the SNA is a user-friendly framework, and that our users can easily understand. So they're looking at also developing to develop a guidance note on that gives some approaches on how to describe different types of economic statistics. You would notice that within the SNA, if you read actual macroeconomics, you'll find that all the terms you find in the SNA, possibly they don't exist in the macroeconomics by writing, but they are there. But SNA has actually chosen to use completely different. So I think the whole idea of this guidance notes is to demystify and simplify SNA concepts. So I'm back to the basics. This is the slide I showed you at first. This is how the guidance notes has actually worked throughout and that there will be the task force team and then experimentation and testing, and this is where I'm encouraging you colleagues to be involved. So the last decision by the Balance of Payments Committee as well as the United Nations Statistical Committee will very much depend on what you colleagues actually give us feedback. So you really have a chance to influence this. Okay, so once the guidance notes are done and cleared by the advisory expert group, these will be posted on designated websites, and we'll always let you know. And an announcement is also available. And you also have an option to express preference for different alternatives or make additions. So in this case, you notice that these will be publicly accessible. So it doesn't matter whether you are a member of any expert group or task force, you can still influence it. And once it is posted, there will be a 60-day period. And then once that is done, then it will be considered closed. I think I'll stop here, and maybe I don't need to do this last slide, but you can always check these sites. You can always check the SNA site on the SNA update on the UNSD website. So there is a dedicated website on the, when you go to the Statistics Division page and click the ISWGA, Intersecretariat Working Group for National Accounts, then you'll find a lot of information in there. Okay, so I think I will probably stop here for the moment, but I think this slide has been overtaken by some of the changes, so maybe it's a little bit outdated, but some of the guidance notes were approved the last week, so an update will be made in due course. So the testing was supposed to start this year, but we'll get back to the countries that that can actually show willingness, and please do let us know. And we hope that the drafting of the manuals will start maybe towards the end of 2022. But I think the most important aspect is to make sure that you make yourselves available for experimentation. So, some questions for consideration up there if you have any thoughts and reflections. Okay, so I'll stop sharing this for now and invite any questions. Okay, if not, Pina, I'm happy to proceed to the last one.
I think we can have a break.
Okay, how long?
Ratana, shall we have a break for 10 minutes?
For how long?
10 minutes.
10, 10.
Yes.
Okay, so, fine, thank you.
Okay. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, please put it on the slideshow.
Yes, I will. I will. I just wanted to just be sure. Okay, so welcome again, dear colleagues. This will be a very short presentation, but some of the issues I've already touched on, I think, from based on the question that came from our colleague from Uzbekistan. So we are going to talk about the assessment and experimental estimates, and this is really a great opportunity for you to influence the 2025 SNA. This slide is already been covered, so it is just to remind you of where we are coming from or how this process has been structured. But I draw your attention to the very last bullet on the left side of my screen, where it says implementation tested through country experimentation and testing. This is where I really want you to be pay more attention. And some of the decisions might be beyond your National Accounts Unit, but I think you may need to pick up some of these things with management. So once the guidance notes are ready, they'll be tested. And the objective of testing is to make sure whether conceptually they're sound and they make sense, or there need to be further adjustments, and so that we have a clear knowledge or know-how of what to be the implementation. And remember, this is the first time that the SNA update process has actually put new suggestions to testing. So this process and its activities are built around research and consultation streams of the SNA update program. And the task force teams and the guidance notes are really the backbone of these activities. Thus require a lot of detailed planning, and that's why we have invested a lot of time in finalizing the guidance notes. And we've also done a round of webinars. We did one webinar for the ESCAP region. And then desk work and baseline assessments and planning ahead, and particularly more important experimental estimates. That will be the grand finale of getting countries involved. So what are the key principles? So first of all, we are looking at baseline assessments. So these will be done at the global level, where we'll send questionnaires to countries to fill in so that they are actually assessed, and then undertake experimental estimates. And the process is that experimenting is a voluntary process. So countries can actually volunteer. And we want to make sure that there is a broader regional or income level representation. So I think I'll be glad and excited to see any of the CIS countries or at least maybe not just one, but maybe more than one of the CIS countries actually volunteering to take part in this process. And then the interinstitutional collaboration and so forth. So this is how it's going to, but once we do the baseline assessments and review the country's work plan, the Secretariat will come up with a final list of potential countries matched with a pre-selected set of implementable guidance notes. And then the advisory expert group will do the final endorsement. So why are we doing this? It's not the end product. The baseline assessment, the experimental assessments, and the reporting of the results, all these will give will provide feedback to the guidance notes and ultimately the SNA update. So by volunteering to be part of the update, you are actually contributing directly to the guidance notes and consequently to the SNA updates. In this way, the issues that are of paramount interest to the CIS countries, for example, would be actually taken care in the guidance notes and finally in the SNA update, so that this is not a domain or is not predominantly run by the rich or developed nations. So the baseline assessment, which is we'll share with you some very specific tool that is a lot of structured information will be collected, sent to the countries, and also some very specific information we might actually collect from the different webinars, which they have actually partly been collected from the regional webinars that we had, I think, in October this year for ESCAP. And then an assessment tool is currently under development, but it will be finalized in due process, so that we can really have an idea of which countries can actually participate. So we'll have a pool of countries for experimental estimation, and I think the onus is very much on you as statistics division of ESCAP, and sitting and being a member of the advisory expert group. We can always root for our membership to be involved in this, so please let us know, and so that we can make a case. Our region is very diverse, from the extreme east in Turkey to Russia, to Central, to South Asia, Southeast Asia, Pacific, East Asia, North Asia. Yeah, so we really want to have our countries across the regional streams of ESCAP duly represented, and please have those discussions with the management of your officers. So what are the requirements? First of all, we'll select some of the guidance notes, and the task teams will propose which ones have been finalized, and the advisory expert group will actually endorse those guidelines. Some have already been endorsed. And the baseline assessment will combine, as I said earlier on, a mix of survey-based, so you bear with us a little bit. I know nobody wants to fill in surveys coming from UN, even though we statisticians are very good at asking countries to do the same. And the other bit will be done at a desk level assessment. And then we can go to the actual experimental estimation and get the countries to actually test them. Yeah, so we'll not pilot all the guidance notes, but some might be, others might not be. So for example, For example, if we have a proposed change to the SNA boundary as of 2008, and then you'd have further proposed changes to the core accounts, and whether we need to propose supplementary tables, and whether certain things are outside the boundary but equally important. And the guidance notes would probably say, well, this is important, but maybe it should be done within the context of a satellite account. So regional workshops are planned, and I think we already did some of these. We've done this, the launch one, but we may do furthermore, I think maybe towards next month or early January. The idea is we can really try to consolidate technical assistance and support countries going forward. But what is very critical is to finalize the guidance notes. So it's a long process, but it has a 2-year window, and we hope by 2023 everything would actually be done for experimenting. So what are the next steps? Putting up a list of steps there, but they're not necessarily consecutive. But let me start by saying the life cycle of the experimental estimates. The planning will be based on how soon all the guidance notes are actually completed, plus the assessment to be undertaken. So the assessments, that is to see what are the status of the issues in the individual countries. And then regional webinars, we will have these regional webinars. Actually, we had planned to have them this month, but it's not been possible. But this is likely to be on the basis of topics that are of great interest. I think digitalization was coming out very clearly as one of the priority areas of the informal economy for the ESCAP region. And then baseline assessments, and then country selection, and then we can have a central repository of everything, and we can make decisions on what to include in the final guidance notes. So this might be the lookout of the baseline questionnaire that we might actually send to the countries. It's just under development, but we'll share with you once it is actually finalized. So inception regional webinars, these were already done across all the regions of the UN, in all the regional commissions in ESCAP, ECA, ESCWA, ECLAC, as well as EC. And what we have not done is the second part, number 2, thematic webinars. So we really want to have these webinars which can actually focus on a particular theme. So whether it is well-being and sustainability, or it is on digitalization or globalization, or something like that. And that is what we will have. We have an idea of the topics that we think could be done for our region, or depending on sub-regions, you might actually do a couple of webinars. Maybe if there's something is of specific interest to the CIS countries, I think that is also feasible. And then we will explore the potential candidates and for the experimentation, and we are encouraging countries to come forward and be part of this. Yeah, so maybe I'll put up a few questions there, but I think this is my last slide, but all I want to say here is that we encourage countries to come forward to be part of the testing and experimentation. And also that there are also resources available financially and human that will support the experimentation process. And of course, to make sure that the process is inclusive, countries that volunteer and come forward should also make available staff that can dedicate some time to this process. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions, or if there are any comments, please, this is the chance you have. Thank you. Pina, you are the moderator. Pina, can you hear me? Kai, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
thanks.
I can hear you.
I was a bit worried. I thought I was talking to myself.
Thank you, Alik, for sharing the presentation. It's very exciting. It will be very exciting to come up with this SNA 2008 update. Thank you for your remarks. And then there are some questions on your last slide. Is anybody would like to take the floor before I deliver the closing remarks?
Yeah, especially the second one, I really want to still have an idea if people are interested or countries interested in being volunteers. But maybe you may not need to answer these questions. Maybe you need to consult management within your office. You are free to do so. But I think from ESCAP perspective, we take cognizance of how diverse our region is and how different our countries are. And we consider the ECIS group of countries as a unique group, and it would really vouch for them to be part of this. And this project has resources to support that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. And then, yes, if you can stop sharing your presentation, I would kindly ask of the presentation of the participants to turn on your camera for a photograph. Please turn on your camera.
Oh, nice to see Shimizu-san. Long time.
How nice to meet you.
My
Very
pleasure.
good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I need to. Oh.
Yes, thank you very much. And then, yes. Thank you. And then 1, 2, 3, smile. Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. And first of all, thanks everybody for being part of this webinar series. And then I also would like to thank ROSSTAT for supporting this project and providing resources for the interpretation. And then I would like to thank Russian Federation for funding this project. And then we came to end of our webinar. And then thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for your interactive participation.
Спасибо огромное организаторам за такой интересный семинар.
We'd like to thank the organizers. On behalf of our team, we'd like to thank you. This is very, very interesting. It was a really interesting webinar for us.
Thank you very much.
Я хотела бы поблагодарить вас за очень интересный курс.
I would like to thank you for the presentation on the national account. It would be amazing to extend the length of this training and to also have more time for discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear participants, for your participation. We'd like to ask you to click the link in the chat and to answer the questions about this webinars and to respond to the questions there. Yes, good afternoon. I would like to thank all organizers of this webinar. You shared with us a great richness of information, and we've learned about the use of SNS 2008 and how it is done in other countries, and about everything that we still can do in our country and what to expect before 2025. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And then